Gamers, today we have gathered here to talk about my honest opinion about basically every civ. This is the last one. I did 15 videos for the other 15 civs. I've done a gameplay video as well for each one of those civs. You can check out me playing 3 games with each civ and then giving my opinion. We're not playing 3 games. It's a 3-game video, but I've played 10, 20 games and then kind of talked about where in the meta is every civ, what I think about it, and then what's the future of the civ, I don't know why I said it like that, gonna be like. So the last one we got is Malian, and Malian is a very interesting one. It's a very unique civ, and Malian playstyle has changed, but not really. So what I mean by that is you're using the same unit comp or similar unit comp to what you used to. Your playstyle is same as it used to be, or very, very similar. It's just how you get there is different. So you used to do Farimba, and now you do the ones with the cows. I don't know what's it called. Now Farimba is still viable. You can do a cow boom into Farimba, but in general, people just do like the classic cow boom into the cow, a landmark, and then you just mass units. Now another thing that's changed is, from a while back, is people don't really do pro scouts anymore into like Farimba. It's more like you don't even open stable anymore actually. You open with immediate cow boom if your opponent is not pressuring you, or if you're getting pressured like by knights, you open with barracks and then make donzos. If you're getting pressured by like English, you open with barracks, make some units, and then you go cow boom. But the playstyle is very similar, like I said, to what it used to be, which is what you want to do is secure your gold, secure your food early, and just win by completely outmassing your opponent. So there's a few different playstyles right now. Basically the most popular one I would say is just playing it barracks, javelin throwers, like donzo javelin throwers, and then you go cow boom, put some pressure on your opponent, and then when you age up, you have like 40-50 donzos, 40-50 javelin throwers, and then once you upgrade them, because Malian upgrades, I think it's 50% faster, the veteran units, so you can upgrade quickly and then you just go for the kill. Now there's, like I said, there's multiple playstyles. There's the donzo javelin thrower and then into Musafaris. There's the style of donzos javelin throwers into sofas. And there's also styles where you, if you can get away with it, you go giga greedy and you just skip all of those and you just do a cow boom into just mass sofa, and then you do like archers perhaps if the opponent is massing spearmen. You go like a sofa plus poison archers, or you can even do sofas into mass Musafari warriors, which also works. But general style, like I said, has not changed. Your point is overwhelming your opponent with the units, which still works great. So let's talk about the strongest part about Malian, then the weakest part, what I think should be changed, nerfed, counters, and civs that Malian is good against. Yeah, Grand Fulani, that's it. So the strongest part about Malians is the fact that they don't really need to move out of their base for resources for a while, because they can produce cows with gold. So even if you run out of food, you can do that. And their passive income. Their passive income is absolutely nuts. Going Manza Quarry into 2, pit mines is really, really strong, and it's just a lot of gold income out of nowhere, out of thin air. And obviously once you go cows, they don't take supply, so you're kind of basically playing Malian with like 220, 230 supply. So that's their best thing about them, their strength, and you want to win the game in either feudal or preferably castle, which is when they're the strongest. Imperial Malian is probably the weakest, but I don't think it's that weak. I used to think Malian is a lot worse in the late game, but I feel like these days if you play the cow boom into Imperial, unless you're severely behind, I think it's okay to play. I'm not saying you're at an advantage compared to other civs, but it's okay. But I would say Imperial is their weakest point, and then their strongest point is definitely castle once like you got the cow boom and you're just massing units. If you're late for Malian, most of the time you play defensive compared to how you used to play, which was pro scouts like offensive, aggressive, trying to take the deer and all that. Now most of the time you're basically either going pure cow boom if the opponent is not aggressive, and if they're aggressive, you just make units to defend. So most of the time you play Malian very defensively in feudal. What I love about Malian is even if the opponent rushes castle or you get caught off guard, it's not the end of the world, because some civs struggle with that, like if knights come from castle age or men-at-arms. But Malian can just make Musafati warriors to deal with men-at-arms really well, and they can make donzos to deal with knights. So even if the opponent ages up and you have a lot of units, you're probably just still fine, which is one great thing about them. Going into castle, like I said, that's your peak. You have 3 pit mines, you have so much passive income. If you manage to get the relics too, it's like you almost don't even need to mine gold to produce Sofa, Musafati warrior, and then you just go a lot of villagers on food. You make a lot of production, like 10-15 production buildings in castle, and you just mass units and overwhelm. And another good thing about Malian, and bad thing actually, is that if you go Sofa Musafati warrior, you actually don't need to micro a lot. It's very kind of just AMU civilization. You don't need to be worried about anything. But that's the good thing. The bad thing is if you are getting heavily pressured into feudal, you need to micro really well with Malians, because you need to control donzos and javelin throwers, and that can be, a little bit tricky. And then in Imperial, like I said, my opinion has changed over time, because you are playing with more supply, and if you play Malian like sending units everywhere and harassing opponents everywhere, it becomes a lot better because your units are weaker compared to the other civs. But if you're sending a lot more army to 2 sides of the map and you try to attack 2 sides at the same time, the opponent will have harder time dealing with it. So not only you have cows, but because of all the gold income that you have passive, you don't need as many workers. So if I play every civ with 150 workers, with Malian you need like 110, maybe 120, which leaves you with a lot more units on the field, which is great. What do I think should be changed, nerfed, whatever with Malians? I don't think anything needs to be changed. It's just that Malian is kind of one-dimensional right now. I personally would, I've always said this, I've said this for English and I've said this for Malian, I'm personally against civs not having to go out on the map. So I don't like the fact that Malian can just sit in their base forever, because it makes it one-dimensional. It makes it so that opponent has a harder time pressuring you. That's kind of the unique part about them in a way. So I don't know if that needs changing. Maybe it'd be cool to see more like 2TC Malian playstyles, but it's like the cow boom is basically your 2TC. So sometimes I get asked, like, do you ever go 2TC with Malian? The cow boom is the 2TC for Malian. So if you go 2TC plus cow boom, that's basically going 3TC, right? So I don't know if anything necessarily needs changing regarding that. Like, maybe it's okay that Malian is just like a civ that's played like this. It's a unique civ. So yeah, maybe the passive income is too high, but if you were to nerf that, you would have to buff their units so they can actually fight with even-ish numbers. But then if you do that, then Malian is no longer Malian. So I don't know, maybe nothing needs changing. I do think that their cow boom is really, really strong. It's still one of the most picked civilization in tournaments. It gets a lot of play time. It doesn't get banned because there are stronger civs, but it gets picked very, very often. And last but not least, let's talk about which civs is Malian good against and which civs is Malian bad against. So any civilization that suffers from not being able to deal with mass amount of units usually struggles against Malian. So for example, Order of the Dragon, Malian is probably its biggest counter because Order of the Dragon units have more HP. So Malian javelin throwers and donzos don't overkill as much. So if 20 donzos throw a spear at a horseman, they don't overkill. They do basically the most efficient damage because the units have more HP. So Malian is very good against Order of the Dragon. I think Malian is obviously very good against French. I think it's very good against Ayubid. I think it's very good against Japanese. Like any civ that relies on like castle rushing and building powerful units, or simply doesn't have as many units, I think Malian is great against. Malian is really, really good against English because English obviously is going to open longbow plus spearmen. You can just open javelin throwers, you don't need anything else, right? So it's very good against that. And then there's some civs that are pretty good against Malian in my opinion, that have very easy time dealing with them. And those civs are either civs that can put very early pressure on them, or civs that can match their army count. So if Malian has a shit ton of units, if a civ can also make a shit ton of units, it's gonna do pretty well against Malian. And one of those is Delhi. So Delhi is also a civilization that can pump out probably the most with Malian amount of units. The thing with Delhi is obviously their units don't have lower stats. They have Ghazi Raiders and they have archers with 20% attack speed if you go Tower of Victory. So they can actually beat Malian in feudal pretty badly. I think HRE is actually a pretty good civ against Malian if you can get to castle and go Men-at-Arms Lensgenecht, because you then just mow down everything. Ottomans are pretty good against Malian because they can put Dark Age pressure onto the gold. Mongol is also very good against Malian. So there's some civs that deal, I would say, pretty well against them. And I think Jeanne d'Arc, I'm still not sure. Some people say JD counters Malian, some people say Malian counters JD. I used to be on the Malian counters JD part, but now I'm thinking that JD is pretty good against Malian, because Malian has no crossbows, and that's the best way to kill the hero. So there it is. And regarding the maps, which I forgot to mention, you want to be playing open maps. So you don't want to be playing hybrid maps. You don't want to be playing Boulder Bay, Baltic, African waters, Ancient Spires, Canal, Conflicts, none of that. You want to play Malians on maps like Cliffside, Dry Arabia, French Pass would probably be okay. Golden Pit is pretty good for Malian. Gorge is okay. Any map that Hill and Dale is not great because you don't have 2 golds in your side of your main base. Lipani is fine for Malian. Like any map that there's some space between you and your opponent and you can get your gold. Prairie is a great Malian map, for example, one of the best Malian maps. So kind of avoid hybrid maps, avoid water maps. Just stick to open maps and you will be good to go. And that's it. I think Malian overall is a great civ. I love playing it. I think it's very, very strong. And I don't see its style changing anytime soon. So if you enjoy it, feel free to try it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I guess this was kind of like a mini series of me, uploading a gameplay video of a civ and then giving my opinion of it. I don't know what prompted it, but there it is. Oh, initially I gave my opinion on the new civ, so then I was like, oh fuck it, I'll do the old ones too because people wanted it. And we'll see what I'll catch on to next. Maybe I'll go back to making guides because I haven't made a guide in a while. So maybe I'll do that. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I want you to have a great rest of your day. Twitch gamers, keep going.